Pam made her way to school eagerly. Not that she wasn't always eager to learn, it was just that school could be terribly dull at times. But today the Terrans would arrive. It was the most exciting thing to happen at school since Ms. Osha got sick for a deciday, and they got to spend the cultural studies period watching old entertainment media. Even if the Terrans coming to the school were in her grade, and probably not heroic soldiers, or Tides-blessed superpilots, or anything yet. But everyone knew that Terrans meant adventure, just like everyone knew that first contact with the Terrans resulted in just one Terran, killing an entire planet of evil villains. Mai said that story was exaggerated, and that Sneaky only took out a gang. But May was fat, so what did she know? She didn't know how to not be fat, that's for sure. Anyway, even if the real story wasn't quite that exciting, with the war on, there was a new Terran hero every deciday. Who knows? Maybe the one joining her class would know one. With such pleasant thoughts to occupy her, Pam skipped beside the canal, where her classmates passed her by as she took the much slower land route. Most of her classmates thought she was funny for walking the whole way, but she didn't care. She liked keeping her clothes and fur dry all day long. Besides, she never got a 0 on homework because of a backpack leak. Even so, she was on time. She was always punctual. Boredom was no excuse to be rude after all. However, the Terran wasn't anywhere to be seen as Pam and her classmates took their seats, but there was a slightly bigger desk near the door sitting empty. It didn't surprise her in the slightest that pretty much the entire class was looking around and whispering about the missing Terran, rather than paying attention to Ms. Ochia until she schwacked her still strong tail on the hard tile floor and shouted, "Settle down!" Once her charges had assumed a semblance of prepubescent order, she said with the exasperation familiar to those who mistakenly pursued a career that involves children sitting quietly, with patience. As I was saying, we have a new student today, though from your gossip, I think you know already. Neville Neiman comes from a planet in the Republic of Terra, but I'll let him introduce himself. She turned to the classroom door and called musically, "Neville, come in please." Pam's heart pounded in her chest, and her ears practically vibrated in anticipation as a bipedal form darkened the doorway, but the second the boy's gangly frame awkwardly ambled to the front of the class to take a nervous pigeon-toed stance, the sheer disappointed shock dropped her jaw open. His clothing was ill-fit and garishly colored. He wore thick corrective lenses over his eyes. His head fur rose in an untidy mess of orangish curls, and all of that was made worse by the way he jittered and fidgeted in place. Pam didn't think that he looked heroic in the slightest. Neville audibly sucked in a deep breath and let out in a rush as if to get it over with. "I'm Neville Neiman, and I come from a planet in the Republic called Hope 8. I know, it's not the most creative colony name, but I can tell you about it later if you care. Anyway, my dad's here to consult with your latest shipbuilding project, and Mom doesn't like station life, so we're living planetside. I hope we can be friends if you want." Then he just stood there until Ms. Osea realized that he'd rambled through his little introduction without pausing for breath. "Thank you, Neville. Please take your seat. I'm sure you'll make lots of friends here," she told him before activating the board to show the basic math lesson they'd left off with on the last math lesson and going into an explanation of decimals that Pam tried super hard to pay attention to, followed by a lesson on poetry that May tried less hard to pay attention to, and then it was time for recess. The very instant that Ms. Osea dismissed the class, all 15 students, except for Neville for obvious reasons, attempted to crowd around the gangly boy. However, he proved more deft than he had at first appeared. That, or the general press of grade schoolers trying to all swarm through desk rows against the grain, gave him a few precious seconds to make good his escape through the door. Pam wondered whether he could psychically tell that everyone wanted to ask questions, and so ran away before anyone could get him. The entire 20-minute recess was wasted by practically the entire school looking for a single boy without success. But he did appear again when the bell tolled for class to begin again. Then he materialized in the hallway, while his new classmates were filing into their classroom to continue their lessons for the day. Pam was so distracted by trying to figure out how in the currents he could have possibly done that she had no idea what Ms. Osha was droning on about until lunchtime. Could Terrans turn invisible? Some cuttlefish could blend into their surroundings, so maybe Terrans could do that too? Or maybe his shipbuilder dad had super top secret stealth tech he gave him. She just had so many questions. Then the bell for lunchtime was tolling, but Ms. Osea was giving instructions. "Now I know you're excited, but it's obvious that Neville doesn't like to be crowded or charged by a mob of 15 of you. So you're to give him at least a tail's length and allow him to eat his lunch, understand?" The usual put-upon drone of children on the receiving end of a lecture they deserved came, "Yes, Ms. Osha. Okay, you can go to lunch now. Anyone who breaks that rule will take a demerit home." More groaning and mumbling answered as the class dug lunchboxes, meal tickets, or credit chits out of their backpacks and filed out the door. Pam had hoped to walk and talk with Neville, but those gangly legs just ate up the tile, and try as she or any of her classmates might, the gap between him and they only grew. However, they did catch up to him at the lunch tables where he was already eating. Well, he was eating something. "What are you eating?" Mai asked between panting breaths. Of course, Mai would waste the first question on food, the fatty. "Oh," Neville said after swallowing a bite. "It's a sandwich, sliced filling between two outer bread slices. This one is ham and cheese." "What's ham?" Mac asked, and Pam glared daggers at Mai for getting the topic stuck on food instead of something more interesting like what kind of superpowers Neville might have. "Ham is a cured meat product, made from a livestock animal," Neville answered before taking another bite. Pam decided that whatever language he was speaking with, under what her translator implant was playing in here, ear sounded nice, as someone else asked, "What's bread?" Well, so there's like grains that get farmed and..." "Oh, so it's grain-based. I wonder if we can eat it," Mai interrupted, because of course she did. Neville only shrugged before taking a pull from a water bottle, and Pam took the opportunity to ask a real question. "Can you read minds?" Water shot out of Neville's nostrils, and he started making the most awful, hacking coughing sounds as some of the other girls glared at Pam while somebody asked, "Are you okay? Do you need medical?" Eventually, Neville managed to wheeze, I'm fine. That's just what happens to a human if we laugh while trying to drink something," to which Pam let out a relieved sigh. No, I can't read minds." "Why would you ask that?" "Well, 'cause you escaped at recess. I could see you all coming, all of you looking at me, all of you coming my way. I just didn't want to get squished." Bix piped up, "How did you hide?" "I'm not telling that. What if I want to hide again?" "Do you have camouflaging pigment sacs in your skin?" Pam pressed. Neville tilted his head to one side and said slowly, "No. That's a weird thing to ask." "Is it? We don't know how your biology works." "I thought that us being warm-blooded bipeds was common knowledge by now." "Well, did you use advanced top-secret stealth tech from your dad?" "If I did, I wouldn't be allowed to say so." "Wait," said Bix, "I thought you were a Terran, but you said you're a human." "Oh, I'm a Terran because my ancestors are from Terra, and I'm a human because that's my species, or race. Whichever, I guess. Not all Terrans are humans, if you didn't already know." A low murmur of excitement ran through the crowd, and May asked, "What other races are Terrans?" "The doggos, the big kitties, the digitans, and the chimp mandos." "Did you evolve together on Terra?" I don't know, really, except the digitans. They're digital sapients, so they didn't evolve exactly." "Did you ever meet Sneaky?" Pam asked before anyone could ask another boring question. "No, it's not like every Terran knows every other Terran. Besides, he died before I was born. Oh, and his name was Greg George." May got a positively evil look on her face as she bared her fangs and laid her ears back, asking, "Is it true that Greg George killed a whole planet of evil villains?" Neville snickered at that, and Pam's heart sank right through the floor as he explained, "Nah. He and some star sailors took down a major crime syndicate because they'd kidnapped a kid from the family who was helping him come home. I can find the whole story in my history texts later if you want. I like the whole planet story, though. It sounds super cool." May had her tail raised in an infuriatingly smug way as she asked, "Only a baby would believe the planet story, huh?" Pam slunk away to eat her clams alone before she heard the answer to that one, and hoped that everyone was too busy paying attention to Neville to notice. After spending the rest of the lunch period stoically contemplating the nature of the world, or rather sulking, Pam found the ensuing history lesson a lot more easy to pay attention to. It gave her a reason to not see Mai's stupid smug face cutting her eyes at her. Then, Miss Osha held the class past the bell to give Neville a 30-second head start, claiming he probably could use some rest, as if Terrans weren't basically unstoppable. The next day, Pam's class was markedly less distracted by the Terran, and his lunch table crowd had diminished by precisely one, Pam. Then, the next day, it diminished further, and the same the next day, and again until Neville was merely another student to the rest of the school, or to most of it, anyway. Then, before anybody had realized it, 2 decidays had gone by, and the Terran was merely a weird-looking alien student who nevertheless wasn't that weird once the novelty of him wore off. That's when he decided to sit down next to Pam one day and ask bluntly, "Did I hurt your feelings? I'm sorry for laughing at your questions." Pam had to fight to keep her ears up and shoulders square, despite the urge to cringe into a ball. "You didn't hurt my feelings. I just really thought it was true." "That Terrans are all superheroes with laser eyes and lightning breath?" he asked wryly. Pam giggled and told him, "Maybe not like that exactly. I'm not a hero or anything. I'm just a kid. I'm sorry." I just thought sneaky adventures through space was, like... You like sats? Neville asked with glittering eyes and a wide smile, to which Pam nodded weakly. That was all the encouragement Neville needed to launch into a discussion of his favorite cartoon, which was more than enough for Pam to do the same. They almost didn't notice the bell tolling the end of the lunch period. It struck her later on her walk home that cheering up a lonely kid is just the kind of thing a hero might do. From then on, Pam and Neville met and talked about the latest episodes of Sats, their favorite older episodes, or Pam's favorite, what was and wasn't true about Terrans or Sneaky in real life, from the show. She found out that humans really did drink insane amounts of ethanol, but only adults, that they could eat almost anybody's food, and that the power of friendship was a very real thing. Neville said that it was, and Mai and her fat face could just cry about it. Then one day, Pam saw some older boys had cornered Neville by a canal a few blocks away from the school. She didn't recognize them, so they must have been from a different school, and they looked mean. They had surrounded him, and despite being shorter than the Terran, they were shoving him around and jeering at him as he tried to keep his balance. "What's the matter, Terran?" one taunted. "Where's your super strength?" "Come on, pull out your Terragun," another jeered. "Maybe they're only tough in armor. I heard they can breathe underwater. Let's try it." "Let's see if he can swim first," said another, as he shoved the beleaguered Terran into the canal. Pam stepped forward, but let out a breath she didn't know she was holding in relief when she saw Neville treading water. "I can't breathe underwater. No gills, mammal," Neville shouted as the bullies dove into the water to swim about him in darting circles and splash him with their strong rudder tails as they laughed and jeered before darting off down the canal. Then Pam went forward to her friend asking, "Neville, are you okay?" "I'm fine, they didn't hurt me. I just need to find my glasses." Pam didn't stop to think about it. She dove into the water and darted to the bottom of the canal. They had drifted a little way, but they weren't hard to find. "Here they are," she said proudly as her head broke the surface. "Thanks," he muttered, and took them. 3 sodden blocks later, Neville was nowhere near as good a swimmer as any Lutrea, and Pam asked what was on her mind. "Why didn't you stand up to them?" "Huh? Why didn't you fight them?" "Oh." Neville forced a smile and said, "I told you I'm not a hero or anything. Besides, there were 5 of them. I would have had to hurt them to make them stop. I don't know if I could do that." "But they're bullies. They deserve to be hurt." Neville shrugged and said, "Maybe or maybe not. I don't like fighting, though, and I don't like hurting people." Pam couldn't say why that answer made her so mad, but it did, so she said, "Well, if they do it again, I'll stand up to them." Neville laughed in a friendly way. "Now I really feel sorry for them." Pam only grunted in reply. The days became decidays became months, and Pam didn't see any more evidence of anybody picking on Neville. In fact, it seemed that despite his atrocious fashion sense, he was becoming rather liked. In fact, their lunchtime talks had something of a circle of other kids who'd come and go for chats on SATs, homework, recently found books, the latest movies, and sundries, which was great because that meant that Pam wasn't by herself so much anymore. She was having such a great time that she had forgotten all about May. May hadn't forgotten, however. One day, Pam found a note in her desk reading, "Pam, I have something important to talk to you about. Please meet me in the gym equipment room at lunchtime. Bix." What could be so important you had to leave a note to arrange for a private chat? Didn't Bix know he could just come up and ask her for a word by now? Well, sometimes boys did things that made no sense, so Pam decided to just go along with it and see what he wanted. She realized that she had made a mistake when the bucket of spoiled clams and hagfish slime clattered off of its precarious perch on a shelf above the equipment room door and onto her head, leaving her with a bruised noggin and the rest of her covered in filth. Things got worse when the gym doors were flung open and a gaggle of about 50 students led by May came in to see Pam in her sorry state. "Oh look, the slime girl is all covered in slime. What a filthy little thing." May crowed as she puffed out her chest and lifted her tail in a display of dominance. Pam cringed into a humiliated ball in anticipation of the laughter of her classmates, but instead Neville called out, "Are you proud of yourself, May?" "What?" "I asked you if you're proud of yourself," he repeated with an almost sad note to his voice. "Sure, why not? Do you think being a petty, cruel, hurtful jerk is something to be proud of?" "Shut up, what do you know? I know that you wanted to hurt my friend for no good reason, and you're proud of it. I know you're not the kind of person anybody wants to be friends with." Pam tried to sink through the floor, but Neville was there anyway, whispering, "Come on, let's go to the office." "You lied," Pam sniffled as he helped her to her feet. "Huh? You are a hero."